This is Matt Kreider, developer with the Public Knowledge Project, and today I'm going to show you a preview of Open Monograph Press. We begin logged in as an author, and what we see here is the author's homepage showing their submissions in an interactive component called a grid. By clicking on the Start New Book submission link, we'll begin step 1 of the 4-step submission process. The first option we must choose is whether to designate our monograph as an authored work, where one or more authors rate the book as a whole, or as an edited volume, where different authors may work on each of the book's chapters. We'll select Edited Volume. Second, if our press has any series or categories of submissions similar to sections in OJS, we could choose an appropriate one here. Next, we'll read and check off the items in the submission checklist that have been designated by the press manager. If we have a note to provide for the editor to read, we can enter it in here. Finally, after reading the press's privacy statement, we'll click Save and Continue to go to the next stage of the submission process. On this page, we'll see another grid which will contain the files that comprise the monograph submission. We'll click the Add Item link to bring up another important method of interaction with the system, called a modal dialog. To add a file to the monograph, we'll first select which type of file we're uploading. We'll start off by uploading an artwork file, then hit Choose File to select the image from our computer. To upload the file to the system, we'll click the Upload button, which submits the file through AJAX and shows a success message when finished. Next, we'll enter in some details about the file we just uploaded, such as its name and the caption that should appear next to it. There's some other optional data that we can enter, but we'll skip that for now. Since we'll have a couple more files we want to add to this submission, we'll click on the Upload Another File button. And this time we'll upload a prospectus for our monograph. For this file, all we need to do is enter a name for it. Press Continue, and again we'll select Upload Another File. This time we'll upload the manuscript for our submission. Once again, we'll designate a name for this file. And since this is all we're going to add to the submission, we'll click on the Uploading Complete button and move on to the next step of the submission process. On this page, we'll enter some general information about our book. We'll start by giving it a title and then giving a brief summary of the submission. In the grid below, we can add authors that worked on the book. For now, we'll just enter a first and last name, along with an email address. We'll also make this author the principal contact for the editor to send correspondence to. Next, we'll create a couple of chapters for a submission in which we can add different authors. First, we add the chapter titles. And then we click on the titles to add authors from the grid above. Next, we can add names to a list of organizations that supported the work. And finally, we'll click on Finish Submission to send our submission to the editor. Logged in as an editor now, we see the new submission. Clicking on the Action button reveals a couple more actions we can take on this monograph. Clicking on Approved for Publication will bring up a modal which allows us to skip the review process and send the submission directly to editing. Contrarily, clicking on the Decline button will decline the submission outright and notify the author. We'll click on the Submit to Review button and select the files in the submission we want to send to our reviewers. From the editor's review page, we see the files we'll be showing our reviewers and a grid which allows us to add reviewers to look at the submission. The first field here allows us to quickly select a reviewer by typing in their name and using an autocomplete widget to help us find them. Future developments here will give us a more advanced reviewer search option and a method to create new reviewers on the fly. Below is a text box which allows us to customize the message we wish to send the reviewer. After that, we'll specify the date which we'll request the reviewer to respond by and the due date for the review itself. Finally, we can select among 3 review types which we can employ. We'll leave it as a blind review. Clicking OK will send the request to the reviewer. Logged in as a reviewer now, we'll see the submission that we were requested to review. We'll click on the link to bring us to the first step of the review process. In this page, we'll see the editor's request message, along with some details about the submission and the review request. We can opt to inform the editor that we may have competing interests, but we'll forego that and just click the Accept Review button and go to the next stage of the review. This page details the guidelines the press has set out for reviewers to follow. To continue, let's click on the Continue button. This page contains the core of the work needed to complete a review. The grid at the top shows the files I need to download and read, so I'll do that now. Having really quickly read the files I've downloaded, I'll use the text box here to enter in my review. I won't say much as I'll put the meat of my review in a separate file and upload it in the grid below. Note that some presses may choose to use review forms. In that case, the review form would be displayed here instead of the plain text box that I'm writing into. We'll click on the Add Attachment link to upload the main review document. Now, clicking on the Continue button will conclude the review. Now the editor should see that a review has been completed, and we'll log back in as an editor now to see that. By clicking on the reviewer's name, a modal will come up showing the comments made by the reviewer and whatever files they've uploaded. You can download their attachment files by clicking on their names. From here on out, we can choose to decline or accept the submission, send the reviewer recommendations to the author, or move it to another review round. I'll choose just to accept the submission and select which files I want to move to the editorial stage. In this modal, we'll also prepare an email to send to the author notifying them of their submission's acceptance.